welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, how you doing today?
Oh, not too bad. I think our original plan, this one's kind of coming out. This episode's a little bit later than the last one we did. I think we were planning on recording a couple days ago, but we went to that wrestling show, and I think our voices were a little they weren't right for recording one afterwards.
Yeah, my voice was absolutely shot after that show.
How was it the next day? Because mine was not good the following day.
My voice, it was a bit sore, but like it didn't really sound too much different, which I
Okay.
was surprised by, honestly.
I was gonna say mine was a fair bit raspy the following day. Well worth it though. That was a phenomenal wrestling show.
Oh yeah, that was great. Good to see wrestling back in the dome here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's been far too long.
All right, so first we got what do we want to start with? We're starting with the Alex DeBrincat trade.
We haven't gotten around to covering that yet, and that's probably since the last time we sat down here. It's the most notable news I would say that has come out in the NHL. Well, maybe not most notable, but uh, definitely up
Well,
there.
most impactful on
Yeah,
ice
yeah.
news.
There we go.
Yeah, but for those who haven't heard, DeBrincat was traded from the Sens to the Red Wings in exchange for Dominic Kubalik, a defensive prospect Donovan Sabrango, a conditional first round pick next year, and a fourth round pick next year. And then
Yeah.
also the Red Wings signed DeBrincat right away to a 4 year 7.875 million average contract.
Yeah, so you didn't even hit 8 mil. Wow.
Yeah, you'd I definitely think he was looking to get more than that, but I think he was much
Yeah.
more willing to take the discount in his home state of Michigan there than in Ottawa.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think from more so for him, that's kind of what it came down to was it really wasn't as much about the money. It was more so he just wanted to go back home. This was the perfect time and opportunity in his career to go to Detroit like he wanted. And so he kind of had to cash in on this moment now, and it resulted in him taking, a bit of a pay cut. But I mean, when you're, back home with friends and family, a
Yeah,
million
it,
dollars or half a million a year doesn't compare to that, I don't think.
yeah. When your contract that you're settling for is $31.5 million over 4 years, it's hard to complain about losing out on a couple million so that you could be around your family. And also, probably, I don't know if he's gone on record saying it, but I imagine he grew up cheering for the Red Wings.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen anything saying that, but I would assume he most likely did. If he grew up, uh, in the state of Michigan and whatnot, and wants to go there, you got to assume he's, yeah, grew up a Red Wings fan.
Yeah. So I
Uh,
believe you had something kind
I
of
mean, I
pertaining to
mean,
this or
well, I
to
mean,
build off.
yeah, yeah. Before going into that, I just what are your initial thoughts on the trade for both sides?
I think I think it's a bit of a gamble for the Red Wings, mostly because as far as I know, Dominic Kubalik has been pretty solid for them. He
Yeah, he was a good middle six forward, I would say.
Yeah, I think he's kind of middle six, kind of creeping into that top six area. I don't know if he'll get to the point where he could be consistently like a top line guy, but certainly a good guy to have at least on your second line.
Yeah, and I think he'll slot in quite well um into Ottawa's. I would assume he probably fits in on their second line. Maybe he's, third line or get some power play time. I think he'll be a good fit for him though, but I think it was I almost kind of compare it and look it back to the Matthew Tkachuk trade last year. Like DeBrincat's not on the level of Tkachuk, but just that I think it's a good return for the Senators, given that again, kind of like Calgary, they were kind of in a strong arm situation by the player. You know, it was very
Yeah,
clear
they were
DeBrincat
definitely handcuffed.
wanted to go to Detroit, and so that was Ottawa's only option to trade him to Detroit, and they ended up getting, I think, a good package back considering they had no choice basically but to trade him there. So I think
Yeah,
it's, that defensive prospect probably, unless he, um, puts together a strong season or something next year, I don't see him being, an impact player or anything. For the Senators, maybe, a third pair guy in the future or something. Um, I think Kubalik could do well, given the talent that the Senators do have. I think he could be a very good player and fit in well there. And then a first round pick is always um solid. It can be used either to draft a good player in the first round, or if Ottawa's really making a push for the playoffs, they can even use that first round pick potentially as a trade chip to bring in another impact player for a playoff run or something.
yeah, especially since I think it's weird. I feel like nobody seems to value first round picks the same. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, but you don't know what you're gonna get. They're not that good. And then some people are like, oh, a top six player and a first can get me almost anyone in the league, right? But
Yeah.
you could definitely get something good. Like the Senators and the Red Wings, at least right now, it doesn't look like they might one of them might make the playoffs. They're in the same conference, so I doubt they'll both make it. But
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
think
see
either
I
of them are going to
both.
be too high up. So you could
Yeah.
definitely package both of those picks together for something huge at the draft next year.
Yeah, yeah, I don't see it realistically given the nature of the Atlantic Division. Like it's already like you've got to assume Tampa Bay and Toronto are for sure locks. Um, me personally, if Buffalo gets some good goaltending, I would say Buffalo's like I would almost kind of want to put them as a lock.
What did
Florida,
they
I'm
didn't
not
they end like
sure.
third in scoring last year? Buffalo?
Yeah,
Like
they were
they
pretty high
they
up
put the
there.
puck in the back of the net. They if they can shore up a bit defensively, they're going to be a wagon.
Yeah. No, yeah, just yeah. Like and it really comes down to the goaltending for them more than anything, I would say. Whether or not they can get that. If they can, I think they're very solid. And then, you know, you still have Boston and Florida kind of sniffing around there. I'm not sure um,
Yeah, we
what
just
they're
named
gonna kind of happen with them just due to, we don't know who's returning for Boston. So right now their centers look kind of
yeah,
just
it's
in a
kind of
weird
in
spot.
limbo.
And then, Florida, their defense is definitely hurting. It sounds like Ekblad and Montour are going to miss. Uh, we don't know for how long, but they are going to miss time to start the season. They lost Gudis, so their defense is, not the greatest. Um, and then, yeah, even Montreal, like if they can fill out some holes on their roster and have some guys step up. They could even be a solid team. Like that whole division is, um, it
Yeah,
could be
it's
a
really coming
dogfight.
into its own.
So yeah, really just for Ottawa and
Yeah,
Detroit to both get in, I can't see it happening because I feel like the
yeah,
Metro is gonna like at least take one of the wild card spots, maybe both. So
yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, we named three teams we think could make the playoffs, and we didn't even mention the 65 win Bruins that just happened, or the guys who made it to the Stanley Cup final this year in the Panthers before that. Like
yeah,
it's
exactly.
it's a rough division, so those could definitely be two, maybe not super high percentage for like the first overall, but like they could definitely be lower picks or possibly lottery picks.
Yeah, and now looking at the other side of the trade, like DeBrincat going to Detroit, um, and this was not long after I kind of ripped into Yzerman and was just struggling to understand what he was doing with that team, just some of the moves he's made. But I mean, this is like it fell right into their lap. You know, they just signed Larkin to that big extension to keep him around, and now you bring in a guy like DeBrincat, who's a perfect guy to play on the wing with Larkin for the next however long, and try and build around those two guys up front.
Yeah, that's like if he had a slight bit of a down year in his sophomore year there, but if Lucas Raymond can be the player that he looked like in his rookie year, like DeBrincat, Larkin, and Raymond, that is not a bad first line at all.
No, that's not bad to work with, and then you still even have Sider on defense, and then you've got Edvinson coming up. Like you're gonna have two really solid defensemen back there. Like they're really starting to build that core now uh, to kind of work with and lead the charge for them for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah, like I'm just looking at some of their lineups now. Like Berggren, Comfer, Perron could be a pretty solid second line. They got Shane Gostisbehere and Justin Hall on the second line there. Like it's
Oh,
not.
that's no, that
Yeah,
one's rough.
yeah.
That one's rough. That's the
Well,
issue
mostly
is the
because of Justin Hall.
defense.
You could. I don't know
Yeah.
why it has Ben Sherratt on the third line. You definitely go Gostisbehere and Sherratt, and then Hall and Mata on the third. But
Yeah, oh, and even further second line, I would still put Andrew Kopp up above Comfer. Unless they're
yeah,
planning to maybe move Kopp to the wing or something. I think he's still got to be the second line center over Comfer, in my opinion.
yeah. I think you might be sleeping a little on JT Compher. I think he's Andrew
I
Kopp
just
is good though. It's
I just don't
they
see him.
signed two very solid guys to be your second center. Neither of them seem like a first center, and neither of them seem like a third center.
I'm not. And again, it's kind of my thing of I just don't fully like Comfer's always just had good talent around him on Colorado. Like, and I think
Yeah.
he's phenomenal. Like, I think he's a really good defensive player. But I just don't see him being that guy in your second line to put up, 50, 55 points there and kind of lead a second line. I just don't see him as that type of guy. I could be wrong, if he gets that opportunity with Detroit and runs with it, like fair play to him, but I don't fully see it out of him.
Yeah, you know what? A lot of teams love that shut down center on the third line too. So I could definitely see him slipping to the third.
Which I think is more solid for him because I just think Andrew Kopp's he has more um in my opinion, he's just got more offensive skill and upside. And I think he's a phenomenal leader. Like I think even if you do a like Larkin, DeBrincat, and Perron, and then let Kopp work with Raymond and whoever on the other wing there on the second line, like I think that could be a really good top six. I think it could work out well for them.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so then the one thing kind of tailing off from Detroit is so they recently and this was a move where I was like, it's tough for Detroit, but really there was no other solution really. They ended up terminating Philip Zadina's contract, and there was a mutual agreement as Zadina just he kind of saw the writing on the wall and knew he wasn't gonna just ever really get that opportunity to play and shine in the top six for Detroit, and he really wanted to go get more playing time somewhere, so he sacrificed uh, whatever was left of his contract. It was at least a couple $1 million to go have a chance to play somewhere else and kind of, establish himself as a full-time NHL player.
Yeah,
And this was a phenomenal move by Big Money Mike over in San Jose. They ended up signing Philip Zadina to a 1 year, $1 million contract. So kind of just a prove it deal.
yeah,
But I just think it's awesome. Like And the biggest thing Zadina talked about was like obviously like, he wanted to go somewhere where he could not even just to go and win a cup, but just to get an opportunity to play and get an opportunity to, make a name for himself in the league. And for San Jose, it's a great move because it's 1 year. He's a former 6 overall pick, so like he's clearly got the skill. And so if he works out great in San Jose, awesome, because he's still an RFA, so they would control his rights. And you could give him a pretty good contract, and he could be a good force for them, kind of coming out of the rebuild. And furthermore, to what Zadina said, the opportunity to play with a fellow Czech in Hurdle, it was something that he was really excited about to do.
Yeah, I think sometimes, especially those guys coming over from some of the Eastern Europe and European countries, I think having a couple of their countrymen on a team that they're going to is definitely a maybe not a deciding factor, but it definitely factors into the decision to go there. Like that's got to be comforting knowing that a guy who had a similar, maybe not a totally similar upbringing, but at least lived in your country, went there and he's been there for years and clearly likes it. So I definitely think that is good, and I think it's a great signing for San Jose. Like
Yeah.
I think it's low risk. It could pay off huge if it does. And I also just love that move from Zadina. You don't see a lot of guys betting on themselves at that level where it's like he hasn't made a ton of money in the NHL. Like he hasn't made like retire on this money yet. But he foregoes at least I think it was at least $4 million.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it was a
he
good
said,
amount.
"No, you keep that money. I'm gonna go play somewhere else, and I'm gonna go try and become the star I know I can be." Like
Yeah.
just the mentality of that alone is, I
So
think,
like
reason enough to sign a player and give him that shot.
yeah.
If he's that hungry for it, like he's not going to be coming over and coasting.
And like yeah, he's gonna come in and with a fire under him, and like he's like you've already know that you've got a guy you're bringing in who's gonna give like his 110% every game.
Yeah,
Because really for Zadina, it's if he has a horrible year with the Sharks, and like if he plays say 60 plus games but doesn't really do so well, like he's obviously I would assume at that point the Sharks would probably let him go. And then but then a team would maybe sign him, but he's not going to really. I just don't think he'll ever get a chance like he's going to be getting going into this season. Because now
yeah,
it's
I
kind of
think
like you said,
it's
it's not
yeah,
very often you see a young player like this do this. So like a lot of eyes are going to be on him to see what he's capable of. And there's a lot of people that are even Detroit fans are like, it sucks to lose a guy like that, but I really hope he does well, like because I like him as a player and I want to see him succeed. So all the pressure's on him to go guns blazing this season and uh, again, yeah, just try to establish himself in the league.
yeah. I've seen nothing but praise for him from Red Wings fans. They want him to be something else. He just quite wasn't that in Detroit, and it sounds like everyone's wishing him the best, and that's just good to see out of a guy who really wants to prove himself. Where do you think in the lineup for San Jose he's going to play?
Um, it's tough. So my immediate reaction would be, going into training camp, I got to imagine that they try him out on a line with Hurdle. Like I think it would just be absurd not to at least give that a go. Just because again that Czech connection is there. See if
See
it
how it
sparks
works at
something
least
there.
in like
And
training camp or preseason.
exactly, yeah. And so I think you're probably looking at something like you've got Hurdle with Zadina, and then maybe Barabanov is kind of what I'm assuming we'll see. And then, your other line would be Eklund, Couture, and whoever else they want to throw in there, whether it's LeBanc gets another try. I'd be shocked if he's on the team come training camp. Or it's probably a guy like Anthony Duclair, who, maybe is a guy, again, kind of like Zadina. You could keep him around long term after this season, or you can, maybe, include him in a trade or something to maybe get assets back. It's I'm unsure what that is, but I would be shocked if Zadina doesn't at least start in the top six.
Yeah, I think you start where you want him to be, and if it works out, that's awesome. And if not, maybe slip him on the third line and maybe give him some power play two time or something and see what you can make of that.
Yeah, and the biggest reason also I kind of think that Zadina will start with Hurdle is it goes back to last season when the Sharks traded Matt Nieto and Ryan Merkley to Colorado for Martin Kaut and Jacob McDonald. Again, Kaut, same draft year as Zadina. He was picked, I think, like 10 picks later in the first round. Again, another Czech player who just was struggling in Colorado. It wasn't clicking there. And then he wasn't getting the opportunity to the point where for multiple seasons in a row, he requested a trade. He wanted out of Colorado and he finally got it and got traded to San Jose. And playing on the line with Hurdle, like he looked like a real NHL player. He was making an impact on every game. You noticed him when he was out there. And I still I'm maybe it was just because kind of end of the season, so they were bringing up some young guys, giving them a couple games in the NHL, and so Kaut found himself now in the AHL, and no idea if this is true. This is just reports right now from both Kaut and the Sharks, kind of going back and forth. So at the end of the season, Kaut actually decided to sign back in Czechia for 2 years to go play over there. Now the Sharks still own his rights in 2 years when he comes back. But in a recent interview, Kaut said when he was sent down to the AHL and started playing down there, one of the Barracuda's coaches would pick an opponent for him to fight before each game. And so Kaut was basically, you're no longer a skilled player. You're here to fight. And
Yeah,
Kaut
you're a 90s style goon, an enforcer.
yeah. And so Kaut said he received instruction that if he fought more often, he would be in the NHL. So then Kaut started to think, I have to go here and fight, otherwise I'm not going to get to go back up to the NHL. And which kind of sucks because Zadina and Kaut played 2 years together for Czechia in the World Juniors in both 2018 and 2019. And it would have been really cool to honestly just to see a line with Kaut, Hurdle, and Zadina all together, and just see what kind of what they can put together and whatnot. So it kind of sucks seeing Kaut leave, but now Zadina's kind of coming in to replace him. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously the Sharks say with what their coaching staff is doing in the AHL that didn't happen. Yada yada yada. Based on what I've know of the Barracuda's coaching staff, I wouldn't be surprised if this is true.
Yeah, that seems like a pretty scathing thing to just say for no reason. Like that's not
exactly right.
like you read that most people would pretty instantly believe it. That very much is a thing that happens in hockey and definitely sounds plausible. And it's really too bad
Exactly
because
right.
he's also a guy who's had, a couple concussions. I think he had a shoulder surgery or two at one point. Like he's, at a certain point, he's got to be like, are they even gonna send me up to the NHL? Is this worth it? What's the point if I get up to the NHL play 20 games on my while still on my ELC, and then I can't play ever again because I've had so many concussions. Like,
Exactly, right? So I really do hope, you know, going to check it. Maybe he only plays 1 year there and gets out of that second year, comes back over, or he plays the full 2 years over and comes back and actually signs with the Sharks. Because I'd really
yeah,
like to see him get another go. Because I think he looked like a great player. He looked like he belonged. It sucks that he's now gone, but like it is nice bringing in Zadina to kind of fill that spot that I think Cal would have had on the Sharks going into next season. I would have had him pegged uh, to be in the starting lineup had he
yeah,
stayed over. So I think Zadina kind of fills that role. And again, same situation, like a kind of a prove it. Like let's go out there, give it our all, and become a regular in the lineup every night.
yeah. I hope that they, don't just sweep it under the rug and they're like, oh no, it didn't happen. That's the end of it. I hope they check in, the higher ups, check whether or not there's legitimacy to it. And, if they get rid of, I'm not sure if they said who it was, if it was a certain guy or if it was just coaching staff. But I hope if somebody is out there saying that, you probably don't want that guy teaching all your young guys. You don't want, if Will Smith goes there for conditioning, you don't want him thinking that's the kind of atmosphere and locker room you have, right? That's not a
Exactly,
winning
right?
culture. So you'd hope that they would get rid of any guys who are actually doing that, and that would certainly make Kaut a lot more likely to come back as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like regardless of whether or not the Sharks believe it to be true or not, I think it's like as a team going through a rebuild where you're really not playing many veterans in the AHL. Like you're rolling with your young guys, you're giving them ice time and opportunities. You need to have the right guys there teaching them. Like
Yeah,
if it's a coach that I could see being very well liked on a team that's a contender, like going for the cup. Like it's like go out there, you've got your assignment, give it your all, do what you got to do. I think that's teams that are contenders would love a guy like that. But for a rebuilding team, it just isn't. It isn't what you want to have for your young guys in their development and their years coming up before they make it to the NHL.
yeah. I think there's also a huge difference between being like, hey, Pat Maroon, let's get the guys energized, go pick a target and go fight. There's a big difference between that in the NHL and telling some 20, a 24 under kid, hey, you got to go out there and you have to fight someone or you'll never play in the NHL. There's a huge difference
Yeah,
in the power dynamic there.
and especially when the Barracuda, both on forward and defense, um, each had a guy who would have no problem dropping the gloves every game if they had to. Like I wouldn't say necessarily they love to fight, but like it's part of their game. It's what they do, and it's just the type of hard nosed player that they are. So if to pick a young player who's got so much skill like Kaut to do it it just makes no sense. Like again, like I feel like it's true, but it just I'm trying to figure out why.
Yeah, because
It's
I
just one of those
believe,
things that just doesn't make sense.
yeah, because I'm pretty sure he gave one specific example of I want to say they were playing. Uh, does Calgary have an AHL team? Would they be playing the Wranglers?
Yeah, the Wranglers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he said against the Wranglers that the coach picked some dude who was like 6'6" and like 280 pounds or something. Like he picked some huge dude, and like Martin Kaut isn't even huge, is he? Isn't he like
No.
6'2"? Like he like picked a guy way out of his weight class,
Yeah.
and like I don't know, a lot of those were rather specific details to be like that would be a long draft up before releasing this if this was some elaborate lie.
Exactly right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, good for him for standing up for that, and hopefully he can mend that bridge with the Sharks at some point.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't think it's a you know a bridge that's burned and can never be repaired. I don't even think it's really that damaged. Um, it's easily a quick fix. Like if it's true, coach is gone, everything's
Yeah.
good. Because if the Sharks didn't know, there's nothing they could do about it. But now that it was
Yeah,
brought to light to
if you
them,
fire
if
the
they find it
coach,
to
you
be
show that
true,
you're backing the player,
yeah,
and that's
exactly.
and that's huge.
And I don't think Coutts a guy. It's like oh, I'm going back to check in. I'm just gonna play there forever. I
Yeah,
think his plan is to go there, get a lot of ice time, really work on his game, come back and be a force. Because by the time he comes back, like he's still gonna be a young player. Like he's not gonna be now in a spot where he's gonna be 25. He's still gonna have a long career ahead of him. So and the Sharks would welcome him back and give him a go when he comes back, I think.
yeah. That's hopefully he can fine tune his game and come back better than ever, and you know, come back and prove to that coach that he doesn't need to fight every game to be a regular NHL player.
Yeah, and I think when he comes back, he's gonna, assuming that coach isn't with the organization, but he's still, watch him. He's gonna prove him wrong, I think, and I really hope he does. But moving on from that, what do you got next here for us? What's our next point?
I don't have a ton to expand on this, but this is one that we didn't have in the lineup before the show. But I just remembered that Nike permanently ended their sponsorship of Hockey Canada in the wake of the sexual assault scandal.
Yeah,
So I believe they suspended their sponsorship of it quite a few months ago now. Uh, and it sounds like not enough positive news has come out that they're permanently ending that now. It's
yeah. I mean, I don't have, it's like obviously, a kind of a touchy subject, so like not diving in too much on the matter itself, but I mean, yeah, like Nike's got to do what they got to do. Hockey Canada's really hasn't. I
they
mean, I mean,
fucked it up pretty bad.
yeah, as shitty as it is to
Like,
say, they just really haven't put their full attention to it and solving the matter. Like it doesn't seem like a priority of theirs.
no, it
And
really feels like they said they're going to do this investigation, and they're just waiting as long as possible for enough people to forget about it, and then they can slowly, probably at like 4:30 on a Friday before the long weekend, just like real quickly when nobody's looking, release the investigation, and it says, "Oh, we found nothing. That's it." Like,
yeah,
we'll
like
see
it.
what happens when they do eventually
Well,
release the investigation, but
and it was. I'm trying to think of when it was. It was somewhat recent, but not too recent. Um, that it sounds like they've kind of like gotten to the bottom of it. It sounds like they kind of at least from what I saw, they know who the players are, but they're not going to release it.
yeah,
Like it sounds like they figured out who's done it, but it's like we're not going to release their names. And again, and that leads to people speculating of like, oh, it's got to be, player X, X, and X because they're all doing well in the league and they don't want to just ruin their careers like that.
yeah,
And then there's other people being like, well, you like, and just multiple things. It's such a messy situation. It's one that's has to be taken seriously. Like it
yeah,
needs to. And it's not. And that's a big problem. And so, yeah, like Nike's got to do what they got to do. And, walking away from such a big partner that they're with there. But it's not good for their brand to be associated with something that's not taking something so serious very seriously.
yeah, and them pulling out of this obviously hurts Hockey Canada a whole lot more than it
Yeah.
hurts Nike. Like Nike's gonna be just fine after this, but that does hurt
Oh
the
yeah.
bottom line. with Hockey Canada.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, with not releasing the players, like you have to wonder if, maybe they were like looking at the list of names and they're like, get a couple down. They're like, okay, maybe we can release this. Maybe it won't hurt the league. And then maybe, like we obviously have no idea whose name is on this. So don't go running around saying it. But, what if Cale Makar's name was on that list because he was on that team? And they're like, ooh, we want to build the league around him. We'll just
Yeah.
cover everything up.
Well,
Like,
and exactly right. And that was a lot of
I have
people's
no idea what kind of guy
speculations.
Cale Makar is. He seems cool enough. I like to think he wasn't involved. But then
Yeah.
again, I'd like to think something like this wouldn't have happened either. So,
Exactly right. And then it just yeah, and then you could even store it into the issue where it's like, you know, it potentially like I'm not saying that this is true, but I'm saying it potentially could be because it's a realistic scenario that we've seen in the past where say whatever, it's player X, X, and X. Now you run into the thing of, you know, was it a secret amongst them or did the entire team know? And then that's a whole
yeah.
nother door you're now opening of, okay, now it's the players who've done it, but it's also all of these, you know, bystanders and whatnot who've said before that they know nothing about this, they weren't involved, and now, and then that could even create an whole separate scenario.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden it could ripple, it could affect everyone who was on that team.
Yeah, exactly, right. And again, like if it's, you know, all these marketable players for the league, you know, I mean, I love the sport of hockey. I hate the all the outside stuff that goes along with it. It's not a good look for the game. But yeah, it's just a mess.
Yeah. I mean, like and it's really too bad that it's, such a culture thing. I mean, hell, we played minor hockey. Luckily, our locker rooms weren't too bad, but I know my first year playing midget hockey, those third years, there were some real bastards on that team. Like, and it's just a thing that often gets passed down, and by the time the young kids get older, they're like, hey, now I'm going to keep them down. It's just
Yeah.
luckily we were on a overwhelming
Can
amount
you?
of positive locker rooms, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of places that are not near as nice as ours, and it really sucks to see for the sport.
Yeah. Can you call it midget hockey anymore? Can we do that? Or do we have to call it U18 now?
Uh, I was only saying it because that's
Well,
what it
exactly.
was when I
And
was
that's
it.
always my
That's
immediate
that's the
reaction.
that's
Like it's
the thing I went into it with. But they did change the name of it, didn't they?
yeah, it's all now just U18, U16, U14, whatever. It's yeah. Or U15.
Honestly, I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's been this way forever." Dude, that's so much better. Not only are you not risking offending anyone, also, I know exactly how old all the players are in those leagues.
Yeah.
Like me trying to think back, like I have this memory of when I did something in hockey in Adam or in Pee Wee. But then I'm like, well, how old was I? Was I 10? Was I 14? Like, after a certain amount of time,
Yeah.
you start, it's harder to remember that. So, it's a lot easier remembering it with the numbers. So why not?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, but it's just yeah, again, you know, kind of like what you said. It's just it's what we've always known, so it's just kind of is what we're accustomed to saying and whatnot. But like, I think we can still say it.
Yeah. As when you're talking about the division specifically.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
anyway, you know what? While we're in the not as happy mood, do we want to quickly talk about Galchenyuk?
yeah. I feel like we got to.
We'll squeeze
I
that
don't
one in
love
there as
talking
well.
about it, but yeah, we kind of got to. I feel like we're
Yeah,
already on
so
that wavelength.
for those who don't know, I believe about 2 weeks ago, Alex Galchenyuk signed like a 1 year deal with the Arizona Coyotes. And I believe it was 11 days after that, they just randomly bought him out. Or
Not
sorry, his
not bought
contract
out,
was
terminated.
terminated
Yeah,
on grounds of I don't forget the exact verbiage of some sort of moral moral debacle
Yeah,
or some he got in
got in
trouble with
some
the
trouble
law
with
and that was
yeah with
grounds
the
for termination.
law. Yeah,
Yeah, he fought the law and the law.
yeah. Um,
But
yeah,
yeah,
it's not.
he
Yeah, it's a
uh,
messy situation all around.
yeah, it
I'm just
sounds like he was drunk. He was in his car. He hit a couple. Sounds like he hit a another car and a sign, like a stop sign or something. Doesn't sound like there was too much damage, but then he when police arrived on the scene, he was incredibly belligerent and very threatening with them.
yeah, yeah, and again, it's one of those things. Not gonna, you know, if anyone listening, they're obviously a hockey fan. They know what he did, um, what was said, and whatnot. So we're not gonna dive into that.
Yeah, it's not too
Um,
hard to Google it. I mean, not much else is going to come up if you
exactly.
just Google his name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No highlights will come up. I'll tell you that. Um, it, and now, so yeah, so like he gets terminated. My immediate response was he'll never play in the NHL again. Like he never will. We've already seen, the stuff that happened with Brendan Leipsic. His group chat messages getting leaked and whatnot, and the things he said about his teammates and even his teammates, significant others and whatnot. Um, he'll never play in the NHL again. He actually, fun fact, the other day, Leipzig sent a letter to Vladimir Putin about getting Russian citizenship over there. Um, but
Yeah,
so my immediate reaction was the things Galchenyuk did. Well, not only did, but then what he said afterwards, like the things he said, I, I was like, he'll never play in the NHL again.
yeah,
And yeah, but I'm now kind of maybe going back on that a bit, um, just based on today. Like it was, his apology came out, um, and you and I even kind of talked about beforehand. You know, did he write the apology? How kind of sincere is it? Type of thing.
yeah. You just
Um,
never know with any celebrity, any athlete. Whenever they announce an apology for this kind of thing, you never know you don't know how sincere it is until you see receipts, until you see the 6 months after and the year after and then 2 years after. Do they just sweep it under the rug and move on, or do they, put in the time, try and kind of atone for what they did, improve on themselves, stuff like that. So we'll just have to wait and see if he can properly redeem himself.
yeah,
I think he's got a chance to redeem himself in the eyes of people, but I think people are pissed right now, and he's got a ways to go.
yeah, and I think again, you never know what an apology is worth until you see the results and actions that are put out afterwards. But I think a big thing is realizing where he's at and that he needs to help and putting himself in the player assistance program that the league offers. And I think
Yeah,
that's like that's already a huge step forward for him to commit to this now. At least initially, we'll see. Again as it progresses, if he maintains it. But I think to put himself in that position now of trying to better himself, realizing he needs help, wanting to do better. I think any player who's willingly puts himself into this program and is committed to becoming better, I think deserves a second chance.
yeah,
In most circumstances. And I
yeah.
think this is
Obviously, it
one that
depends
was
what
is
they did.
is really, and I think this one is really kind of at the top of like anything further. I don't think there's coming back. Um, and it sucks because like everyone's or anyone who has been drunk has probably said something stupid in the time. It's just unfortunate the things he said were very very serious,
Yeah,
and
like
it comes.
I've
It's not
been
something
drunk plenty
that's
of times, but uh,
never come close to
a
that,
lot of the things he said, you like
or like
that's not if you're a good guy, and you're not troubled, you don't
Exactly.
get drunk and all of a
Exactly.
sudden throw that out there. Like,
Exactly. It's coming from an issue within him.
yeah,
And so hopefully doing this can help him figure that issue out more, work through it, overcome it, and hopefully come out a better person on the other side of it. And I think if he can prove that and go through the program, excel in it, come out a better person, I could see him getting a second chance down the road. But I think this completely ends him ever being, trying to get back to that third overall pick that he was when he was drafted in his first couple years in the league. He'll never get back to that. But he could still be an effective,
yeah,
bottom six guy on the right team, should he get another chance, because there's no guarantees.
yeah. And I just want to throw out there that I love that players are actually using the player assistance program. I don't know how long it's been in the league, but up until 3 years ago ish, I feel like I never heard of anyone using it. But like we've had Jonathan Drouin, Robin Leonard, Carey Price, like quite a few players.
Jacob Vrana, Spencer Knight,
Yeah,
even.
yeah, like plenty of players are, they've kind of broke the stigma of it, only being for the worst of the worst players that have like really bad problems. These guys are just checking themselves in because they realize, what, it's important that I get this help. And it's really cool to see this awesome resource the NHL has put together being used.
And yeah, and not even only that, but it really, honestly, in my opinion, really helps these players coming out of it become huge role models for kids.
Yeah.
Like to see an athlete and someone you look up to and admire, come out and be like, I need help. I'm asking for help. I'm reaching out for help. It can really inspire these kids who may be struggling with whatever, maybe again, struggling with a bad coach or something in hockey. Like it teaches kids that it's okay to reach out for help regardless of who you are or anything. Like it just, yeah, like it's even Bobby Ryan. I don't even think we mentioned him.
Yeah. I mean,
Like he was a huge
he was a
one.
while ago. He was probably one of the first ones.
Yeah,
That
I think he
was
might have been the
absolutely huge.
first. I don't want to say that for sure, but I think he might have been the first.
That probably the first one I had heard of, I believe, when
Yeah,
it
and then
happened.
that first game back hat trick, that was nuts.
Right out of a storybook.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, we'll kind of cover the situation very briefly, because obviously nothing major is going to come out in the next foreseeable future. But it's something I think we'll keep a close eye on and uh, see what results in the end of it. Kind of when it's
Yeah, try and keep updates whenever they come out,
yeah,
the few and far in between that we'll get.
yeah, exactly.
All right.
Um,
Next up, we got Mika Kippersoft. Mika Kippersoft,
yeah,
sorry, is getting his number retired by the Flames, and it's
San
about
Jose
time.
Sharks legend Mika Kiprusoff, I might add.
What number is that they're retiring? He was 34, correct?
34, yeah.
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 Yeah, living around Calgary, growing up,
Well
you know,
deserved.
ob absolutely. The most common jersey, obviously, was Jerome McGinley to see. Mika Kiprusoff was right behind him, though. Those two were head and shoulders. You saw more jerseys of
Yeah.
those two than anyone else in
And
Calgary.
it's very, and again though, it's something very rare to like people, like most of the time you see, when people buy jerseys and whatnot and get names on them, it's usually like that first line center, that elite goal scoring winger, or sometimes that stud defenseman. Like it's not very often you see people get goalie jerseys. And the amount of Flames jerseys you see today, like years later, that are still Kippersoft jerseys, just really shows it just speaks volumes to how impactful he was and what he meant to that, not only the Flames franchise, but just the city of Calgary as a whole. And it's just so well deserved. I couldn't be happier for him. And I think it's a great move by the Flames to do it.
Yeah, I think yeah, there's not much more to say. He more than earned it while he was here in Calgary, and that'll be a really cool game to go to if
Yeah.
going to the jersey raising ceremony.
Yeah. And you know, even something I just kind of thought of because I was reading something on it earlier while we're on the topic of the Flames. So Craig Conroy's already established that. So this just clicked into my head because we're talking about like, you know, Ginla and Kaprizov kind of being that core, those leaders and whatnot. And so Craig Conroy's already said that the Flames are going to name a captain for next season. Like it's going to happen.
Really?
In your opinion, who do you think in the current state of the team right now, who do you think they pick? Or who would you pick if you had the opportunity?
Oh, you know what? They got so many important pieces that, you know, there's all the rumors if they want out and stuff, which is tough because my gut reaction would be a bridge captain for Michael Backlund for a few years. And then when he retires or leaves, you'd move it to kind of the future of the team. But I don't know if he's going to return, you know. I think that you could go defense. I think Rasmus Anderson might be a really interesting choice.
Yeah.
I think even Hannafin definitely could.
If he sticks around.
Yeah, again, if he sticks around.
And
but
yeah. So
I know a lot of
Anderson
Flames fans
would kind of be your
absolutely
pick?
love Anderson.
Oh,
I think
he's
so.
becoming a fan favorite real quick. That's not a bad pick, honestly. Yeah, because I'm thinking about it and like, you know, if it's not Backlund, a lot of people's immediate response is Chris Tanev. And in my opinion, I think he'd be a serviceable captain. But again, you're kind of just in a situation like you were with Giordano. You know, kind of near the tail end of his career. Not necessarily, I guess, for Giordano, but you know, just kind of it's just not a guy you can name captain and be like, he's gonna be the guy we run with. You know,
he's not
for
going
the
to be a
future
long-term captain.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just kind of covering it up for a couple years until something else arises. And I don't think that's a direction the Flames want to go in. So I don't see Tanev. I think he's a great assistant captain, or alternate, whatever you want to call it. I don't see him being the pick. I think the absolute worst player you could possibly pick would be Huberdeau.
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
I completely agree. He's done
no sense to pick him whatsoever. Great player, love the guy, but just horrible. It would be awful. Just based on this past year and going into the future, it just makes no sense.
I think one of the things is that he seems like a good guy. You can throw an A on him sometimes, but I think obviously I don't know any of the Flames personally, but he doesn't seem like the guy to stand up and rally the troops for the team, you know? Like it's I really think Backlund would be great as a bridge captain if he does stick around. Like he not just win the what was it? Is it the King Clancy?
I just call it the Good Guy Award. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, he won the Good Guy Award for doing charity stuff in Calgary. Like, dude, that's who you want to go to bat for. That's who your guys are willing to run through a wall for.
Yeah, I think he'd be a great pick. It really seems like he's not going to be returning. I think another very solid option is if they can convince Elias Lindholm to stick around. Maybe it's like, hey, we're offering you a deal here. We're also offering you the CN to be our captain for, this 7 or 8 year deal that you sign.
And be the captain would be that would be such a good day to be a Flames fan.
I would love to see that happening. I really hope it happens. I'm kind of torn if it will or not. But I think, if you're a Flames fan, that would be a phenomenal day.
Yeah, I think probably one of the defensemen will get it if no hard decisions are made over the summer. But I think they're keeping that captaincy open right now to use as a bit of a bargaining chip with guys like Lindholm, where it's like, if you stick around, this is also something we can give you.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
trying
the
to keep
exact
these
same
guys
thing
around.
they offered to Kachuk. They offered him an 8-year deal with the C, and he was like, "Nah." He's like, "Nah, fam, I want out."
Yeah. He wanted that offer too. He wanted it earlier, and they said no, bridge deal.
Yeah,
And he didn't want it later. He wanted it back then, and they would have got
yeah.
him at a discount to what he's making now for sure. Like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, yeah. He
brutal,
would
brutal
he
to
would
not just lock him up, lock up your
he'd be on
players,
one of the
especially
best
if you're a Canadian
contracts.
team.
Well, look at um New Jersey. They people thought it was a horrible signing at the time when coming right out of his ELC when he really wasn't that first line star center. They locked Jack Hughes in for 8 years at $8 million, and people were like, "That's a huge overpay." And now all of a sudden, a couple years later, looks like one of the best contracts in the league, if not the
Yeah,
best.
yeah, it's easily top three in my opinion. Like I could not believe at the time people were saying that was an overpay because like even when it was signed, I was like, dude, like he wasn't performing at that level yet, but he clearly was going to be a star.
Yeah,
Like he just
you could see
everything
his
about
ceiling.
watching him
Or
play, you could tell he was going to be that guy.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, and Flames could have done that with Kachuk, and they decide to do a different approach and didn't pan out too well.
yeah, and they figured, oh well, in 2 or 3 years, Goudreau will come off the books, Kachuk will come off the books, and we'll re-sign them both for another 8. And well, that's not how it went.
Yeah, no. So that's a yeah, yeah. I don't really got much more to say on that. I think we had some kind of little trivia games and whatnot. We were planning on rounding it out here with, right?
Yeah. Before that, did you want to tell the Stampede story? Because I know you heard it from the source, and I just heard it from you. It's just a
Yeah,
neat little
yeah.
anecdote here.
So- And just for the sake of it, not gonna say who it was or anything, you know, and whatnot. But it was a funny story. So, someone we know was at the Stampede, and I can't remember what tent or whatever they were trying to get into, but they were in line waiting to go, and they were just like, "Oh, I got to go to the bathroom real quick," and so they decide to um like figure out where to go. So they're like, "Oh, I'll be right back." They go out and they see all these security guys standing together, and they were like, "Oh, perfect. They'll be able to help me out." So they go over there, and all these security guys are rallied up, and there's people all over the place, and they just kind of push through. They walk up to this guy, and they're like, "Hey, where's the bathroom?" And he's like, yeah, it's just right over here." Little did they know, um, all those people they were walking through and all the security guys were all crowded around PK Subban, who was there, having a good time at the Stampede. And so rather than asking any of the actual security guys or anything, they go up to PK Subban, who they didn't even recognize, and was just like, "Hey man, like where's the bathroom here?" And like I don't even know if he knew very well, because how would he really know?
Yeah,
But yeah, when I heard
he
that,
was just like filling in as like a security guard for a little portion of the day there, just kind of like doing a little bit of a media thing, taking pictures, being a security guard for the day.
having a good time at the Pede, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and so they just like didn't know until they got back to line, and like all
Yeah,
their
and they were
friends were
like,
like, "You were just talking to fucking PK Subban."
yeah, and you just all these people wanting autographs and whatnot, and you just charge right through and just like, "Hey man,
They just
where's the
charged through.
John
Hey,
at?"
yeah, where's the pisser, man? I got to use it.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that was a really funny story
Yeah,
when I heard
that's
that one.
that was awesome. I remember seeing online that PK Subban was at the Stampede. And I remember coming to you and being like, "Dude, Subban was at the Stampede. That would have been so sick to see him." And you're like, "I got a story for you."
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, I got a story for you." Yeah, I thought that was a really funny story, and That's one
Yeah,
we're
that
gonna be
was a good
laughing
one.
about for quite a while. Um, yeah. So this was a fun little trivia thing I wanted to throw at you here. And I'll let you decide how many of these you want to do. Um,
All right.
just for the sake of time and whatnot. So I have a list of NHL players who recorded the most total points each decade, all the way from the 1950s up until the 2020s and present.
Okay.
Um, so I want to see how many of these you think you can get for uh, across these 8 decades. So like the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and then 2020s. I'm curious to see how many I can, and I'll give you the amount of points as well. Like I don't know if that'll help much, but
Okay.
um, and I'll let you decide like how many of these you want to do. So if you don't want to do, the 50s and 60s and on, I can just give you those ones. But it's up to you on
No,
that.
I'm good. I'm good to do all of them. We'll start old and go to new.
All
Um,
right.
we should probably put a cap on my guesses. I don't want to sit here and guess forever at all the players until eventually I get it right.
Yeah.
Maybe
I'll
I'll
give you
get
three
three guesses.
guesses. Yeah, three
Yeah.
for each one. Okay. So starting with the 1950s, across that decade, this player recorded 807 points.
Honestly, that's more than I thought it would be for back then. Um, I've got a couple names coming up, but first one I'm gonna go with is Gordie Howe.
Yeah, you got it right away. There you go.
There we go, 1 for 1.
Thanks. So the 1960s, this player recorded 784 points.
Slightly less. I mean,
I
he was
don't
around for a
think
long
you'll
time.
I don't think you'll get this one.
No? Well,
This
based
is
on
one of
that,
three that I
I'm gonna
don't
assume
think
it's
you're gonna
not
get.
Gordie Howe. I assume it's not him. Um, the 70s. When did he start playing? Oh, call me crazy.
This is the
I'm gonna go.
60s.
Oh, we're going 60s. I'm skipping ahead. I have a name that's like on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. It like starts with a B or something. You know what? I'm just gonna lock in a Henry Richard.
It is not. No. No.
Oof. But
Not Richard. Yep, you got two more here though.
I got two more. I'm trying to think. I don't know a lot of players from back then. I
And that's what
think
I was
I'm
thinking.
going
I
a
knew
bit
these ones
too.
were gonna be kind of tough.
I think I'm going a bit late with this guess, but I'm gonna go Ted Lindsay.
No, no, definitely not Ted Lindsay.
Am I even close with his generation? When did he play? Do you
Um,
know?
I'll quickly look up here because honestly, some of
I
these
think he
guys,
played in the
it's
50s at
I
least.
can't
But
remember sometimes.
have you
I
even like
believe.
heard of this name before?
Oh yeah. No, yeah. Lindsay, I think was like mid 40s to kind of mid 60s. I think he had a decent tenure, but no, it's not Ted Lindsay.
I'm gonna go with Bobby Hull.
It is not. Is not. And this one I didn't expect you to get just because I'm kind of surprised.
I feel like it's somebody whose first name starts with a B, but like I
No.
can't think of like any names with that.
Yeah, no. No. You ready
All
for
right.
it?
Yeah.
Stan Mikita.
Mikita. Aw. For my
I
last
kind of
guess,
figured that one would be a
I
little bit
even thought of
tricky.
a Blackhawk, and I didn't even pick the best one from that decade.
Yeah. Um,
You know that makes a lot of sense, but I don't think I would have got that with even a few more guesses.
yeah, that one was just a very, very tricky one.
Yeah, I got a
Um,
guess locked and loaded for 70s though.
perfect. So yeah, so
But
the
let's hear.
70s, 1,100 points.
Oh, that's a lot of points.
And I'll tell you, the second most from a player in a decade.
Really? That's the
Yeah.
second most across any decade. I
Yeah.
didn't think, wow, you definitely think they would be like the 80s or maybe the 90s, but I guess the first probably is the 80s. um,
And this one will probably, I assume, will be broken by the end of this decade.
I'm going to go with Guy Lafleur.
It is not. It is
It is
not
not Guy Lafleur.
Gila for no.
1,100 points.
Right on the dot.
Bobby Orr did not. Did he get up to that many? He was he was a well over a point per game.
He didn't
And
play very long though.
he didn't, but he played like 700 to 800 games. Could he have got that high up?
I would tell you he didn't even make it to 700 games.
He didn't even make 700.
I know that.
Jeez. That's rough, man.
Yeah. Greatest defenseman of all time, though.
Hey, there's something to be said for longevity, though. You know, a guy like Ray Bork.
Yeah.
But we're not here to debate that.
That is true.
You know, maybe a Nicholas Lidstrom. I'm gonna go Phil Esposito.
Haha, bingo. Nailed it.
Yes.
I feel like
kind
the
of thought
rest-
I had it locked with Lafleur. I was kind of shocked it wasn't him.
I thought you were going to get him right away. I thought that was going to be your guess locked and loaded. All right. The 1980s. You ready for
Wayne
it?
Gretzky.
Yeah. With 1,864 points. That one will never be broken.
Not even close.
No chance.
Does any other player even have that many points in their entire career? If they do, it's like 3 players or 2 players.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I can't even think on
Like,
the top of my head.
Yager and Messier might be up there, but and that's their entire careers of a guy who's still playing when he's like 55.
Yeah.
Gretzky did that in 1 decade. And when did he start playing? Didn't he start in 81? Like, he didn't even have the 80-81 season.
I can't remember what year he started in the league. Didn't win the Calder Trophy, though, I'll tell you that.
What a bust.
So the 1990s with 940 points.
940 points. The last one was 1,800 something. This one's 900 something. That puts you about 2,700, which is around what Gretzky had. So I'm going to go Gretzky.
Yeah, it is Wayne Gretzky. Yeah.
Yeah. How close was Lemieux for that decade? Do you have the stats there, or just like a list of the top one?
Yeah, I just got the list here.
Okay. He was probably close though. I mean, he did miss quite a few years, or at least he missed some games. But
yeah, it just had to be the great one. Like, as long as he was around, it really wasn't. I don't think there was much competition to dethrone him. Now, this is the other one I think might stump you a bit. Is the 2000s
2000s
with 817 points.
817. Okay, so it can't be Ovechkin or Crosby because no, there's no way. Like 2005, he was halfway through the decade.
Yeah.
I got a guess. I don't know if this is it. I think my second guess is gonna be better. But
Okay.
I'm gonna go first with Marty St. Louis.
It is not Marty St. Louis.
Okay.
It is not.
I think
respect
this
that
one's
guess, though.
this next one's I think a much better guess because I know he was started playing more at the beginning of the decade because I don't know when St. Louis fully entered his prime, but I'm gonna go with Jerome McGinley.
It is not Jerome McGinley. It is not. You got one more guess here. Think big.
Oh man. Oh, I just had. Oh, I'm so pissed. I had a name ready and I like completely lost it. I was like trying to
That's the
think if there was a
worst.
better guess, and then I come. Oh man, it's totally gonna be the answer too.
You know what team that player was on?
Oh, uh,
Oh,
it.
you got it?
I it. Jumbo Joe Thornton.
It, in fact, is Joe Thornton, actually, with 817 points.
Yes. I was thinking of him, and then all of a sudden I lost it. And your big thing, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well it's not fucking Chara. And then I was like, oh, it's Joe Thornton. And then the jumbo, I was like, oh, it's definitely him.
Yeah. Yeah, which I mean, that one was the one that I think surprised people the most. But like in his heyday, like as a pure just playmaker, like and especially he was always on a good team. Like he was, yeah,
Yeah,
just he was
125
an
points in a
animal.
season, like coming out of the dead puck era. That's pretty freaking good.
Yeah, yeah, good guess there. So the 2010s with 802 points, so 15 less than Joe Thornton had the decade prior.
Two less. He's the best player of the decade. I got to go with the guess first, Sidney Crosby.
It is not Sid the Kid.
He missed too many games.
He missed
Yep.
too many games. He did, he did, he did.
McDavid, the same thing with last decade with Crosby. McDavid came in too late. He came in halfway through.
Yeah. I feel like you're going to get
Was
this
he?
one.
I'm trying to think if this guy had any major injuries. Was he elite for that long?
Elite for that long, you're probably not on the right track then.
Well, I know he was like always good, but he became like really good at a certain point. I'm gonna go Patrick Kane.
It is Patrick Kane. You are
Yeah.
correct. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, kind of that whole decade was really like, I mean, I want kind of a Crosby Kane type thing. Like, people may not
Yeah.
agree with that, but like in my opinion, it was, just, if it wasn't Crosby being in highlights, it was usually Kane and whatnot. So,
Yeah. Which is funny because, back then, during that time, the conversation was always, or at least for a couple of years, was, is Taves better than Crosby?
yeah, still can't believe people ever thought that. That's
Yeah. I
wild.
mean, he was really good in his prime, and that was also during the time where Crosby was missing games like crazy with injuries. But
Yeah.
I mean, if you've seen Crosby in his prime play, or when was he at his worst in his career? Like,
Yeah, exactly right. Like,
he's on another level.
yeah. This one might trick you actually. I'm curious if you'll get this one. The 2020s with 414 points.
Okay, 414. That's a lot of points already.
This one might
Well, I'm
stump
going to go
you.
with Mc. Well, I'm first going to go with McDavid.
Yeah, it's McDavid. It was yeah, like there was no one else it could have
You
been.
you you had me thinking that he like missed a season in there for a second. And I was like, I'm going to waste a guess on it anyway
I was
because
like, it's so easy. I tried to do whatever I could to
yeah,
stump you there.
yeah. If it wasn't McDavid, it was Draisaitl. Like,
I thought you were maybe gonna throw Kucherov's name in there.
well, no, because he missed
Oh
the
shit,
one
that's right.
year.
Yeah, he missed an entire season. Yeah,
Yeah, he
duh.
crossed my mind, but he missed. He
Yeah,
missed
totally.
the
Yeah,
whole year, and that
I totally
kind of
forgot about
takes
that
you out
because
of it.
Tampa Bay was still so dominant without him.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you did pretty good on that. Like you all except one.
Yeah. Which one did I miss? The 60s?
Yeah,
Nikita?
yeah.
It's pretty good.
But
I like that.
that one, in my opinion, was the toughest one. So
Yeah, probably. I mean, Gordie Howe, Gretzky, those are all pretty easy. Maybe for somebody who doesn't pay too close attention, I could definitely see Joe Thornton tripping up some people.
yeah, that it was kind of that one and Joe Thornton. I thought were kind of the two toughest ones.
Yeah,
But
that's good
yeah,
though.
way to
I
go!
like
Round of
that.
applause.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right,
Uh,
what are we what are we rolling with here?
we've been going pretty long. Do we want to end it there with that trivia?
Yeah, I'm good to wrap that up there.
Yeah, we got some other fun stuff, but we can save that for the next one.
Yeah, works for me. I'll always be locked and loaded, ready to go with whatever fun stuff we wanna do.
Hell yeah. And I'm ready to tease the audience with a
Oh
little
yeah.
more trivia.
I mean, we did it before for agency, like with part two. Well, let this one roll out for a couple days here, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Anything you wanna say before we hop off here?
Be nice to the police because otherwise you'll lose your job.
Yeah. Well, if you wanna,
Words to live
I'm
by,
not
am I
I'm
right?
not gonna dive down that rabbit hole. Yeah, we'll leave it. We'll leave it there. Thanks to everyone for listening, and we will catch you in the next one.